Futuristic technology science recently brought to reality. Hello and welcome back to another video here on UpTech. Every generation has its own idea of what futuristic means. 50 years ago, that would have meant flat-screen TVs, 24-hour ATMs, and other things we take for granted today. In this video, we'll be taking a look at a futuristic tech science recently brought to reality. Stay tuned and watch. Thought-controlled prostheses. Prosthetic limbs have come a long way in history. Compared to our early days, prosthetic limbs aren't just pieces of wood fakely shaped like an arm anymore. Today's prostheses almost look and operate like real limbs. However, anyone who has lost an arm will tell you that prostheses aren't anything like the real thing. No matter how advanced they get, they still can communicate with the brain and neural network. Of course, it was until science decided that it's time to build thought-controlled prostheses and did. In an experiment funded by the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, a man from Florida becomes the first recipient of an artificial limb that can be controlled by thoughts, blurring the line between imaginations and reality. Even if he still can't do everything he could with his real arm, like splash water on it or drive, the arm largely works as intended. Full-fledged 3D printed organs. Today, 3D printers can print anything as long as the materials and blueprint is available, from guns to musical instruments to clothes. People who have been experimenting with the 3D printing since the technology came out have done unbelievable things with it. Some of 3D printing's truly futuristic applications lie in medicine, like printing and replicating organs damaged during accidents. A researcher from Rice University recently printed a full-scale model of the lung, complete with air pathways and blood vessels, mimicking the real thing. We also come to one step closer to perfectly replicating human tissue. In another lab, scientists were able to reprogram the cells of our tissues into stem cells and make a bio-ink out of it. The ink could then be used to print a complicated organ such as heart, exactly like the real thing. Of course, this doesn't mean that we're now able to completely make a human body on our own, though these advancements are still something we never expected we'd able to do so soon. Working retinal implants. According to reports, around 1.3 billion people worldwide are diagnosed with vision impairment. Many of them suffer from degenerative retinal diseases that cannot be cured. Completely curing blindness would certainly be considered a futuristic proposition, and thanks to the groundbreaking research into retinal implants that perfectly mimic the human eye, we may already have the tech to do it. Recently, scientists have made a retinal implant that works exactly like the real thing and successfully tested it in rats. We'd like to note that eye implants already exist, though none of them could fix the damage done to the retina, as it's responsible for taking the information seen through the eye to the brain. This new tech can fix the eye and be used as a replacement for the retina and photoreceptor cells, something that wasn't possible before. Digital tattoos. You may have heard of the various types of LED screens that scientists are working on, including super thin, foldable screens that we may be able to carry in our pockets like handkerchiefs. But you may not have heard that the same thing could have been done to the skin. Based on the recent developments, we already have the materials to do that. We are not talking about replacing actual skin. No, this would be a tattoo-like augmentations to the skin that would double as displays. If one Japanese research team is to be believed, we have already developed the material with which it would be made. It could be used for a lot of things like monitoring heartbeats and other health readings while connected to an app on your smartphone, storing unlock codes for your various devices, or simply serving as over-the-top bespoke tattoos for really fancy parties. Grow organs of one species in another. One of the biggest problems with organ transplants is how choosy the human body is when accepting something it didn't grow on its own. But there may be a way to get around that problem. In another organism, you grow the required organs that perfectly resembles those made by your own body and then transplant them. If that sounds like something straight out of the distant future, we are pleased to report that it isn't anymore. In fact, scientists have already done it in mice. In a study published in Nature, researchers were able to grow pancreas cells for a mouse in rats. And yes, they are completely different species. First, they injected rats with the stem cells and did some other complicated science stuff. Then they transplanted and developed pancreas cells into mice with diabetes. To everyone's surprise, the mice were cured and their sugar levels were kept down for 1 year. This technique could be used someday to grow whatever organs we need in other animals. 3D printed nanobots. Scientists have also been imagined in popular fictions as well as the daydreams of budding scientists for quite some time now. In theory, we'd be able to build robots so small that they could enter the bloodstream and carry out minute operations inside the body, like manually killing cancer cells. The device we had until now were folded DNA strands from another organisms, even if they could be called nanobots for all intents and purposes. More recently, scientists from Hong Kong developed 3D printed nanoscale robots with stem cells, nickels, and titanium and successfully used them to deliver cancer cells to specific locations in mice. Of course, the end goal should have been removing the cancer, but that wasn't what they were testing. They wanted to see if the bots could deliver a payload to a precise locations and use cancer cells because they are the easiest to track. Sending tastes over the internet. The internet has changed our life. We can now see, hear, and feel what's going on a million miles away. However, we can only send information that engages our senses of sight and hearing, and it's still limited by the quality of the recording equipment and the skill of the person recording it. We have no way of sending, for example, what we smell through the internet, but we are one step closer with taste. In a study conducted at the University of Singapore, researchers were able to successfully send a measure of sourness of a lemon drink to a glass of water in another locations. They even had people test it out. Although most admitted that the virtual lemon taste was a bit less sour than the real thing, the participants were largely able to identify the taste. Of course, this has only been tested on a lemon. As of now, the researchers cannot reproduce the real flavor without simulating olfaction. Still, it's pretty unbelievable. Self-healing skin. The human body is prone to wear and tear with age. If some recent developments are to be believed, we are not going to have that problem for long. Scientists at the National University of Singapore recently developed a self-healing material that mimics the skin of a jellyfish. The skin is able to repair itself within minutes of being cut or torn and can even withstand coming into contact with water. While those with more perverse mind could see this as a next step of building realistic sex robot, it has quite a few other uses as well. It can be used to create realistic prostheses, which could be combined with the previously mentioned thought control mechanisms to build artificial limbs better than our real ones. This electronic skin is also sustainable because a material that can heal itself doesn't need to be discarded as a waste. 3D printed food. Cooking is definitely one of the jobs where there's no way that a machine would have an idea of the right ingredients and proportions to make the food taste good. However, machines have already proven they can do it as well as we can. According to Natural Machines, a 3D food printing company, we already have the technology required to 3D print food items like burgers and pizzas. Foodini, as their machine is called, is capable of taking ingredients and turning them into dishes that taste as good as those made by people. The best part is that the company is now focusing on health food and fresh ingredients. Many other firms are now developing machines that give you the options to 3D print food items at home. Remote touching. A big limitation of getting things done is being there to do them. We know it sounds like a philosophical and edgy argument as you obviously have to go places to do things there, like for example buying groceries. However, many researchers have hard at work trying to overcome that limitations. No matter how impossible it sounds, imagine a world where you could have a sex with someone across the world like you were there, or conduct a remote conference with the versions of yourself that could replicate everything you do, including handling things from far away. The concept is so futuristic that we aren't able to wrap our head around how it could be possible. However, a technology developed by researchers at MIT is already able to do that just to a large extent. Known as Inform, it's a shape-shifting interface that can take input from a remote locations and precisely replicate those actions in another. Inform is only the name of the interface though, as they are now building quite a few other applications on top of it. Take Materiable, which is one of the applications that allows you to remotely handle objects and has even been successfully tested in the lab. It's able to mimic the properties of a lot of materials found on Earth, like sand, water, and rubber. Remote handling is only one of its applications, as we don't even know everything that it could be used for yet. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.